I know that the Democrats just want to fast track these people to citizenship and voting rights, but the majority of the American people, they don't want to see that happen.
I mean, I have to speak up just for a second, Alex. If you're going to mass deport over 10 million people, rounding them up and shipping them out, first off, that is horrific from a human rights perspective, but more importantly, it ignores the economic impact.
Far-right MAGA pundit Tomi Lahren engaged in a TV debate over immigration. As you can imagine, there were a lot of conspiracy theories and misinformation coming from Tomi Lahren, as is always the case. We're going to take a look at clips of this heated debate about immigration. I'll share my thoughts from time to time. Let's get into this together.
But let's move, Tommy, to the issue that you brought up, which is immigration. And Ethan, we see polls reflecting that voters believe that Trump would be stronger on the issue of immigration. It's a huge concern for a lot of voters. Your take on that?
Well, I think it's very interesting that voters would think that about Donald Trump. So the family separation policy that actually we're still trying to recover from, where children were yanked from their parents' arms as they sought a better life in the United States, potentially fleeing the drug violence of Central America, among others. We absolutely agree that we have to secure our borders. We need to know who enters and exits our country from a national security perspective. But to say that Donald Trump will be any better is almost a joke, because his so-called wall has already failed endlessly where it was built. They immediately built ladders that climbed over the top. But furthermore, let's actually get to the key issue here. When Congress finally had something where there was bipartisan support, top Republicans were behind the bill. It was Donald Trump's cry that, oh, it will help Joe Biden, that got all the Republicans to vote against what was a rare occurrence of bipartisan support for a bill to actually address immigration. My concern is both parties benefit from making this a hot potato issue every single election, and any real solution never gets discussed.
Tommy.
Oh, boy. You know, Alex, there's so much I have to say on this. As somebody who's been to the border several times during both administrations, I have a lot, but I'm going to try to keep it brief and concise. Listen, there's no way around it. In 3.5 years, the Biden-Harris administration welcomed in 10 million plus illegal aliens. We know tens of thousands of them are convicted murderers and rapists. There are criminal aliens that are filling the ICE dockets that are non-detained. This is simply inexcusable. They have been overseeing this administration. Now, listen, I know it's easy to point to a talking point saying the bipartisan border bill. That really wasn't a border bill at all. It was a foreign aid bill disguised as a border bill. It normalized 1.8 million illegal aliens into this country per year. Now, if you're okay with that, then that's another discussion. But a lot of Americans are not okay with normalizing and codifying an invasion at our southern border. It afforded lawyers to illegal immigrants. I've had several attorneys like Ethan on my show that specialize in immigration, and they say, listen, once you start affording these people immigration attorneys, any good immigration attorney is going to stretch this process out 5-10 years. By that time, these illegal aliens have already had multiple children, and it's almost impossible to remove them from this country. The bipartisan border bill, I understand it's a great talking point for the left, but it would not have solved anything, and it would not have done anything with the 10 million plus. There was no deportation guidance in that border bill. So the majority of Americans support mass deportation, over 50%. It's time to start dealing with the problem. I know that the Democrats just want to fast track these people to citizenship and voting rights, but the majority of the American people, they don't want to see that happen.
Okay, so first of all, the attorney here that Tomi Lahren is debating is named Ethan Behrman, and the moderator here is Alex Michelson. So a few things. What the Biden administration has been trying to do is increase the number of attorneys for actual asylum seekers so they can be processed more quickly rather than having to wait forever, which has been an ongoing problem. So it's not the idea of this conspiracy theory that Republicans throw out that the Democrats just want more voters. They're trying to have more attorneys in place to actually process asylum seekers. In terms of the bill, what is incredible to me about this is that we know that Donald Trump put pressure on Republican lawmakers to vote against the bill because that getting an immigration bill through, they feel would have helped Joe Biden. So Donald Trump didn't want that bill to go through. So it would harm Joe Biden and help Donald Trump. If immigration is the problem that Republicans and Donald Trump and J.D. Vance claim, and Tomi Lahren claim it to be, that it's all of these criminals coming in and they're committing all these crimes and everything, which also is untrue. The immigrants commit crimes at a lower rate than actual American citizens do, which only makes sense. Someone who is here illegally is going to want to be under the radar as much as possible. So they're not going to be committing crimes or doing anything to bring attention to themselves for the most part. Are there people who are criminals coming across the border? Yes, just as there are criminals already in the United States. There's going to be some percentage, but it's lower than the percentage of citizens already here, people who grew up in the United States. But if immigration is really the issue that the Republicans claim it is, that all of these immigrants are coming to get us, and there's probably an immigrant hiding under your bed right now, just waiting to murder you, or standing in your yard waiting for you to walk outside so they can attack you. If that's the case, is it not treason to purposely stop a bill so that Donald Trump can get reelected? Is that not treason? And also, when have we seen in modern times, I mean, maybe this has happened sometime previous to the last 50 years or so, but when have we seen an entire party run by a politician who isn't even in office? Donald Trump is not even in office, but he's able to dictate what all of the Republicans in Congress do. It's insane.
I mean, I have to speak up just for a second, Alex. If you're going to mass deport over 10 million people, rounding them up and shipping them out, first off, that is horrific from a human rights perspective. But more importantly, it ignores the economic impact. There's a reason that prior Republican administrations, such as George W. Bush, were pro-immigration. It's because the big business, the donors behind many politicians in both parties, benefits from having lower cost labor that Americans won't do. Remember that there was an effort in places like Florida to get Americans to take the job. They jacked the wage up and Americans wouldn't do the work. They couldn't do the work. Many of these jobs are not something that Americans want to do. What's important, to Tommy's point, is that we need a functioning visa system for people to come here and work. It used to be called the Bracero system, and that did work for a period of time, but we need something to keep track of people who are coming and going and to have the labor that is needed to get the jobs done.
Well, one thing is clear. Both parties have not really wanted to solve this issue. When Democrats had complete control of Washington, they didn't move an immigration bill. When Republicans had complete control of Washington, they didn't move an immigration bill, in part because donors and activists on both sides have tried to stop it. Tommy, if Trump actually gets in there, do you think that there's going to be a real change?
Well, I believe, to Ethan's point about the mass deportations, it's always interesting to me when those on the liberal side clutch their pearls about deporting people that came to our country illegally, but they completely dismiss what these people and their impact on communities. Now, listen, I do believe that a lot of these people are good people, that are families that are fleeing countries that are far worse than ours, and I understand that. And I don't blame them for coming to our country if given a free pass. But the fact of the matter is, our cities and our states simply cannot handle the load of millions and millions of illegal aliens in their communities. It is bankrupting New York City. It is bankrupting Denver, Colorado. And that needs to be dealt with. So while I understand it's not going to look nice to have deportations, the American people and our country simply cannot sustain and maintain what is currently happening. And if you want to talk about wages, when you pump millions of illegal aliens and you give them work authorization, all you're doing is driving down wages for the American people. That is something that you also have to contend with. There's also limited housing. Right now, you've got cities that are paying for hotel rooms. They're paying for debit cards. They're paying for meals. They're paying for every whim and wish of illegal aliens. And that's simply unacceptable when you have American people that are currently struggling, especially in the Southeast right now. $750? I mean, come on, Ethan.
And Ethan.
Okay, so first thing that I want to address here, Tomi Lahren throws out the conspiracy theory that, or half-truth, or however you want to look at it, in terms of the $750. She's talking about the money that is given to disaster victims by FEMA. And Republicans, including Donald Trump and apparently Tomi Lahren, are pretending that those people only get $750. Under Donald Trump, it was $500. It's gone up to $750 since then. That is just an initial payment to the people for necessities, things like diapers that the people need to get. That isn't all they get. They then can apply for more funds, which I think it's up to $42,000 or $43,000, something like that. So this is just a lie on Tomi Lahren's part, and Republicans keep spreading this over and over again on social media, and Donald Trump is saying this, that $750 is all that the victims of the recent storms in the Southeast got. Total lie. Ethan Behrman brings up the employers here, and this is something that you're never going to hear the far-right MAGA pundits like Tomi Lahren talk about, is the employers. This should be part of any policy that you would put in place to deal with illegal immigration. Go after the employers who are employing people illegally. But you're never going to hear that from Republicans because they can't vilify poor people in that instance. They're always going to side with the wealthy business owners, many of whom would be white, and they're always going to vilify poor immigrants coming from other countries. So you're not ever going to see Tomi Lahren be like, yeah, you know, if you really had a comprehensive plan, you would be doing things to stop people at the border, but you would also be putting employers in jail and issuing huge fines to them for hiring people who aren't here legally, but you're never going to hear that from Tomi Lahren.
And it is objectively true that our cities and counties are overrun by a lot of the demands of this.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't use the word overrun, but I might say in certain cases, yes, overwhelmed, I think is the more appropriate term. But here, look, there's no question that a pure open borders policy, whether it's from the libertarians or the progressive left, is not the way to do things. We need to.
Now, I would stop here for a second. Who is actually advocating for purely open borders? I think the people that would be claiming that are very, very small percentage of the country. That's certainly not Joe Biden or Kamala Harris's policy.
To know who's coming and going. We need to have better control. We need to have, I say the phrase, functioning work visa programs. There are visa programs, they're not functioning. There are certain labor needs in both the hospitality industry, in the agricultural industry, among others, where we absolutely need to have some other form of labor coming in to help out. But nobody, to Alex's point, and as I said earlier, neither party ever bothers dealing with that because it's way more effective for a politician to be able to hammer away on the other side and say, they're the problem. Oh my gosh, all people who are immigrating here without proper papers are the problem. Or the problem is the right wing is terrible because of this or that. There is a middle ground that is rational, that's achievable. We've shown it in the past over the centuries here, even in the United States. We simply have parties who refuse to meet in the middle and do something that's rational for the American people.
Well, let's talk about another issue, immigration.
And I think that Ethan Behrman here at the end of the day is totally correct, that neither party really wants to do anything about immigration because it's a great boogeyman for them. Tomi Lahren puts down the immigration bill that was put forward. That was a real giveaway to Republicans by Democrats. Republicans were getting most of what they wanted. Now, the real fire breathers like Tomi Lahren, you know, the real hardcore MAGA people, anything short of you put a moat filled with alligators at the border and, you know, have laser beams to incinerate the people as soon as they cross over, you know, anything short of that, they're not going to be happy. But this was a bill that was a big giveaway to Republicans, and they squashed it because they don't want Joe Biden to get a win and they want Donald Trump to get reelected. So if they were really serious about immigration, they would have put this bill through and said, hey, this is bipartisan, doesn't matter who's president right now, this is what we need to do. But they're not going to do that because it's all politics. And, Tomi Lahren's solution to this of deporting everybody, Trump and J.D. Vance are saying that they're going to deport 25 million people, which is way higher than the number of people who are here illegally or undocumented or whatever term that you want to use. So you would be deporting people who have been here for a long time, people who are here legally. And I mean, that would be, as Ethan Behrman said here, just a humanitarian disaster. They don't care about that. And if Trump gets back into place, you're going to have a lot of instances like we saw during his first term where, all the MAGA people are thinking it's going to be the criminals and, the people that they don't like getting deported. But we had people who had been here their entire lives, came here when they were babies or small children who were deported. And then the people, MAGA was saying, well, the guy who owns the restaurant in my town got deported. We didn't want him to get deported. He's one of the good ones. Or my spouse got removed from the country. My spouse is a good person. They're not like these other criminals coming across the border. You're going to have a whole lot of that if 25 million people are deported. What's Tomi Lahren going to say then if, God forbid, that happens? I don't know. But what did you think about this debate? This was an interesting one to me. I was not familiar with Ethan Behrman prior to this, but I thought he had good points. Tomi Lahren throws out the typical MAGA right-wing conspiracies and misinformation, but you wouldn't expect anything less from Tomi Lahren. Make sure to give me a comment about this video, what you think of Tomi Lahren, what do you think of how Ethan Behrman dealt with her. I love to read your comments and hear your thoughts. Also, make sure to give me a like and subscribe. I'm over 30,000 subscribers now. I want to keep growing, and that is a result of your likes and subscribes. So if you haven't subscribed yet, please do so I can bring out more content like this. This is Chris on Culture. I will see you in the next video.